Alright guys, so now we're heading off to a shop. This is to get our final quote before actually pulling the trigger and going to a shop. Now, as I mentioned in the previous video, giving you guys an update, we already have a scheduled appointment for the work to get done. That's in about 2 weeks from now. But this shop I contacted last minute, and they're a performance shop, so we're going to see what kind of quote they can give me, as well as I don't know, just to kind of see how they are and how they feel about installing these parts on the car. So this is the first shop that actually doesn't do quotes over the phone, so I don't know if that's a good or bad thing. But either way, it's a beautiful day. I have the day off, so me and my wife are going to make a little trip out of it. So we're going to go there, get a quote. I'm going to see if I can record anything for you guys. I already asked on the phone if I can, but they said no. So with that being said, let's hop in the car. It's about a 40-minute drive, and we are about 10 minutes late. So let's get to it, see what the quote is like, and then I'll catch you guys right back after. Alright guys, so we just finished up at the shop, and it turns out that it was only a 15-minute drive away from Toronto Zoo here. So me and my beautiful wife on a beautiful day are just gonna wing it and take a look at the zoo. And it's been a while since we've been to the zoo, so it's great to do this today. But the shop went pretty good. I got the quote. We'll get into more details of pricing later on in the video once I break down the cost of the parts and labor. But it's a good price, and they seem very capable. Like, they had some really cool cars in there. So yeah, more to come on that. But for right now, we're gonna take some time off, enjoy the zoo, and maybe you guys will see a little bit of footage of that as well. But yeah, catch you guys later. Alright guys, so it's a couple days later, probably even a week later. We had a great time at the zoo. Unfortunately, it was super hot, so a lot of the animals were just either laying around or not even on display due to the heat. But yeah, we ended up taking about 17,000 steps while we're there, so at least definitely getting our steps in. And now it's about 7 o'clock, just past 7 o'clock. We have our appointment in Pickering, Ontario for 8 o'clock. So we're just about on time. And we're going to hop in the car, make our way there, and I'm going to talk about some of the things that are currently a huge issue with the car, just kind of reiterate them, and then let you guys know what I'm hoping changes with these parts that are being installed today. So let's hop in the car, get to talking, more importantly, getting these parts installed. Alright guys, we are on the freeway now, and just pretty much to reiterate the main things that are pretty much wrong with the car is, so a huge number one, the thing that you hear over every single bump is a clunking, and this is most likely due to the Jounce bump stops in the rear, and it's pretty much these sponge-like things that absorb the car and prevent it from bottoming out for the rear end of the suspension. So since the ones on the car currently are stock, they're extremely worn because of course this is a 2006 vehicle. So those Jounce bump stops, which are I think a form of polyurethane rubber, don't quote me on that, but I think they are. And so yeah, rubber obviously over time cracks and, you know, doesn't have its sponginess, so to say, over time. It gets brittle and not much rebound allowed to happen. So yeah, every time you go over any type of bump, you hear a clunking sound, and that is just super unpleasant. It's something that unfortunately has been this way since I got the vehicle, and it's something that's bothered me ever since. I kind of tuned it out and gotten used to it because I've had the car for like 2 years now, but I can't wait to experience driving the car without, you know, hearing that clunking. Like, it's just super annoying, and anytime I have a new passenger in the car, they obviously notice the sound right away. So it's that bad. So that's the big thing that I'm looking forward to getting resolved. Also, the brakes on the car, I'm not sure when the previous owner last changed them, but they are super spongy and on the last legs of their life. I mean, I actually wish I took the rotors off myself just to see how thin the actual like metal material is left, or the plated material is, because they do not stop well at all, which is why I've reduced the amount of spirited driving that I do, because the brakes are, you know, they feel very prone to failure, and they also produce a ton of brake dust at this point in their lives. So having new brakes all around is going to feel good. Not only that, guys, but we're getting steel braided lines, as I mentioned before. So what steel braided lines are going to do is they're going to pretty much reduce the spongy feeling of your brake pedal. So because rubber expands a lot easier than stainless steel, when you press the brakes, obviously when you press the brakes, you're forcing the fluid to the pistons of the caliper, and then the caliper clamps down on your rotors. It clamps the pads down onto the rotors, making you stop. And with rubber brake lines, the rubber expands, and so not all of it is going properly. It's like having like a wider open. It's hard to explain, but you guys, I'm sure, know this and get what I'm trying to say. The rubber essentially expands, and it makes your stopping power not as precise, and so you do have to press the pedal a little bit more with stock rubber lines. Now, rubber lines, for the most part, do the job completely fine. The only time you're really going to notice rubber lines not doing so well is if you've had them for a really long time, like a decade plus, which is the case by far with this car. And also if you're on a track, because they don't handle heat nearly as well as stainless steel braided lines would. So since I do plan to track this car at least a couple times in my life, stainless steel braided lines are going to help for that. And not only that, but they never start to lose their rigidity over time. So they're going to stop. They're going to give you the exact same brake pedal feel as they would on day one, as they would a decade later, 2 decades later. So that's the cool thing about braided lines, steel braided lines. It is a pretty tough install because you have to bleed the whole system, and that could take a couple hours, especially if you're doing it in your driveway on your own. So that's another great thing that's going to be a positive change in the cars. No more squishy brake pedal feel, and that's going to be future-proofed as well, because like I said, it's going to stay that way forever. So another thing that obviously sucks about the car, guys, because it is stock in terms of suspension, is the ride height. Now, obviously, coilovers are going to be able to fix this, and not only that, but we're going to be able to adjust them on the fly. And the cool thing about the Petters that I got is they have adjustable, and we'll talk a little bit more about these things when they're on the car possibly, but maybe in a separate video when I go over all the mods done to my Mustang, like in a future video. But yeah, they have under the hood spring rate adjustability. So pretty much I can turn a little dial on both sides of the strut towers under the hood, and that is going to allow us to change the stiffness of the springs on the fly. So if I want, I can set it to a soft setting for a more comfortable, leisurely ride. And if I'm going on the track, I can turn it to the stiffest setting, so that way the chassis and the springs are at their stiffest setting, being able to handle corners and turns a lot better, and without as much body roll and stuff like that. So very cool. It's also going to be able to lower the car, make it look a lot more aggressive and just sleek. I plan to do a 2-inch drop, up to 2-inch drop in the rear, because the factory wheel gap on these 05 to 09 Mustangs is absolutely god awful. So I plan to do a 2-inch drop in the back and about a 1.5-inch, 1.5-inch drop in the front, and that should give it a nice leveled look. I know a lot of people like the ranked look of these cars, where the back end sits a little bit higher than the front end. But for me personally, I like the even, nice, flush stance, pretty much. So that's what I'm going to be going for with this, with the Mustang, obviously. And then another big problem that the car has, this is not something that we actually got, because I'm saving it to do with the exhaust once I get the mid-pipe, because I already have the long tube headers, already have the axle back, I just need the mid-pipe. And so speaking of the problem is actually the drive shaft. So the drive shaft on this car is the stock 2-piece clunker, and I notice it ever so dramatically, honestly. I hear it whirring at about 130, 140 kilometers an hour, and sometimes it'll even start whirring at about, like, it makes a whirring noise at about like 40 to 60 kilometers an hour. And it also makes the car feel sluggish. But with that being said, the drive shaft is going to be the next part of the next set of mods that I do to the car. So it's going to be drive shaft and long tube headers with the mid pipe. So that's going to be a huge performance gain, because once you go with an aluminum drive shaft, one-piece drive shaft for these Mustangs, it feels as if you've added about 20 horsepower to the car, because you're reducing a lot of weight going from a steel 2-piece drive shaft to an aluminum 1-piece. So it saves about, I think, like 30 pounds or something like that underneath the car. And not only that, but because it's 1-piece, and because it's lighter and more rigid than the steel 2-piece, it means that the car is going to start turning those wheels a lot faster pretty much immediately as you press the throttle. So the throttle response gets greatly increased by having an aluminum 1-piece drive shaft as well. So huge gains to be added in the future, but we'll talk about that obviously in the future when that time comes. For now, let's focus on the suspension and brakes, and that's pretty much the big issues that I'm hoping to see changed here with these parts that are being installed. Of course, we're going to go over pricing later on in the video, to give you guys an idea of how much is being spent to achieve what ends up happening with the Mustang. Because yeah, I'm hoping to at least resolve those issues. I know the ride is going to be pretty stiff once we get the coilovers installed, even at the softest setting, I believe. So yeah, we're going to see. Hopefully it's not too stiff, because I'm someone who kind of enjoys a comfortable ride as well, but I do like having that adjustability under the hood, like I mentioned earlier. So we'll see how it is. So I'll catch you guys back when we actually hit the shop, and yeah, pretty excited. All right, guys, so we're here at Velocity Performance in Pickering, Ontario, and we're dropping off the car for the day. We might have to come back and pick it up tomorrow, because it is a 10-hour job, and they're obviously, when you're working on a car with a lot of old bolts and stuff like that, you're gonna come across bolts that get stuck and stuff like that and snap off, and you're gonna have to torch off, etc., etc. So it's probably gonna take longer than 10 hours. Hopefully not, but I told them to give me an update call at 3 or 4 p.m. just so I know if I can come back for the car the same day, because me and my woman, we're going to be spending the time here in Pickering. It's a little bit away from home. So yeah, we're just making a whole trip out of it, just trying to enjoy new places in Ontario, in Canada. And yeah, I want to show you guys the stock ride height here, if you guys can see that properly on camera. So pretty large wheel gaps, and that is going to be fixed, and I cannot wait. Just mute that call real quick. So yeah, super excited, should be dope. And hey, we'll see the brand new car, pretty much a brand new suspension, brakes all around, once we pick it up. I'm super excited, but that's all for now. See y'all later. Peace. All right, guys, so we just got back to the house from the shop, and it's about 34 hours later since you guys last saw me in the video, and unfortunately we're here without the car. So a little bit of a hiccup happened, something that I'm not too pleased with, to be honest. Essentially, the bolts on the lower control arm are seized, and the only way they can take the old lower control arms off is by cracking or breaking those bolts one way or another. And so we need to wait for new bolts from Ford, because they're very specific grade bolts, the grade of the metal, that is. So we have to wait for them from Ford. So there's nothing we can do in that regard. The only thing that really kind of irked me is how late into the installation this problem was found, because we went there today at near closing time for the shop. So we gave them about 16 hours of working hours to complete a 10-hour job, and unfortunately they weren't finished because of this issue. I didn't get a call or any communication from them on their part letting me know that this complication was found, We showed up near the close of their shift because we were expecting to be able to pick up the car today because we didn't hear otherwise, and that's when we got hit with the news. So they said there's good news and bad news, which is never something you exactly want to hear when your car's getting worked on, but sure, we expect it. It's an old car. We said in the beginning of the video there's going to be some bolts that probably give them a hard time, but again, I just don't like how late into the whole process this issue was found, especially considering, you know, it's just bolts on the lower control arms. It doesn't take too long to get to the lower control arms to begin with. So that left me a little bit bitter feeling. So unfortunately we had to trek back home, and the bolts, since today is Saturday, the bolts are going to be arriving on Monday. So we're not going to have the car for the whole weekend, and the car still needs to get in alignment after they install the new bolts for the lower control arms and stuff like that. So we're probably not going to see the car till Tuesday, which means it went from a 10-hour job to unfortunately about a 4, 5, 6 day stay that the car is going to have to stay at the shop for. So I don't often do this, guys, but unfortunately, due to these unfortunate and unforeseen events, we're going to have to end the video here. It is already a little bit long of a video, and what that means is, for the next video, we're going to jump straight into the car, the changes that have happened, and it's going to be a nice, short, sweet, and simple video, hopefully. But yeah, you guys can always follow me on Instagram at Octane Street for little sneak peeks, hints, previews of things that are to come. I do post some sneak peeks and some general thoughts over there, so feel free to follow me out there. But other than that, guys, be sure to hit that notification bell so that you guys can ride shotgun with me in the next video. It should be coming here soon, so don't worry about waiting too long. And yeah, that's all for now. See y'all later. Peace.